You saved up, did your research, read the reviews, and picked up what sounded like a legitimate fishing upgrade. Maybe it was a high-speed reel because someone online said it would help you cover more water. Maybe it was an 8-strand braid because the label said it was smoother and more sensitive than the 4-strand you were already using. Maybe it was a rod with the highest modulus graphite rating you could find because sensitivity sells. And then you got on the water and something felt off. Not broken, not completely useless, just not what the packaging promised. That happens more than most anglers want to admit. And today, we're going through 9 fishing upgrades that sound significantly better than they actually turn out to be for most people in most fishing situations. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this channel is built around one thing: helping you spend smarter and fish better without the marketing hype. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've spent enough time around tackle shops, rods, reels, and the anglers who use them to know that fishing marketing is one of the most convincing forces in outdoor retail. The industry does a remarkable job of making something sound like it will completely change your game. And sometimes it genuinely does. But a lot of the time, the upgrade that sounded like a revelation on paper creates a new problem you didn't have before, or simply doesn't help in the conditions most of us actually fish. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which upgrades are worth chasing and which ones you can pass on without losing a single fish. Let's get into it. The first one is the high-speed gear ratio reel. You've probably heard the pitch: faster retrieve, cover more water, keep up with quick-moving fish. On the surface, that makes sense. If you can bring the bait back quicker, you can make more casts, right? Here's what that pitch doesn't tell you. A higher gear ratio doesn't give you more power. It does the opposite. The same mechanical principle that makes a high gear ratio fast makes it weaker under load. That matters when you're fishing heavy cover, pulling a fish out of grass, or working a big, deep diving crankbait. A faster reel makes you work harder through resistance, not easier. You're moving more line per handle turn, but you're generating less cranking force doing it. Anglers consistently report that reels in the 8.1 and 9.1 range feel noticeably harder to crank through any meaningful load compared to a 6.3 or 7.1 on the same rod. Does that mean fast reels are useless? Not at all. If you're burning a swim bait across the surface, fishing topwater, or working a jerk bait and need to pick up slack quickly between twitches, a faster gear ratio has a real and specific purpose. But a lot of anglers buy one thinking it's just a better, more advanced reel in every situation, and then wonder why their forearm is fatigued after a few hours of cranking a square bill through timber. Match the gear ratio to the technique, rather than to what sounds most impressive on a spec sheet. The second upgrade that fools a lot of people is the ultra-sensitive high-modulus graphite rod. These get marketed hard. High-modulus numbers, phrases like "feel every pebble on the bottom," and price points that suggest you're buying something elite. There's some truth in there. Higher modulus graphite does transmit vibration differently than lower modulus blanks, and the sensitivity is real. But here's the part that gets glossed over in the marketing. Higher modulus graphite is more brittle. It has less shock absorption built into the blank. That rod that transmits a light tap on a drop shot beautifully is also more vulnerable to a hard impact in a rod locker, a sudden load from a large fish, or a high stick moment when you lift a bass out of the water at a bad angle. Anglers who keep equipment in padded cases and fish finesse presentations in open water may genuinely benefit from a high modulus rod. Anglers who toss their rods in the back of a truck, fish heavy cover, or are still developing their technique are often better served by a medium modulus graphite or a composite blank that bends under pressure rather than failing at it. You don't need the most sensitive rod on the rack. You need one sensitive enough to feel what you need to feel and forgiving enough to handle how you actually treat your equipment on a real fishing day. The third upgrade is premium fluorocarbon. used as your full main line on a spinning reel. Fluorocarbon has legitimate advantages. It's nearly invisible underwater, it's denser than water, so it sinks, and it offers solid abrasion resistance. Those selling points are real. The problem comes when anglers spool a spinning reel with heavier fluorocarbon thinking they're getting all those benefits, plus easy casting. What they actually get is line memory, coil problems, reduced casting distance, and wind knots that show up at the worst possible moment. Fluorocarbon above about 10 or 12 pound test on a spinning reel becomes genuinely difficult to manage. It wants to hold the shape of the spool. It doesn't lay flat after it comes off, and when it comes off with any twist, it creates loops that tangle around guide frames mid-cast. This isn't a brand-specific problem. It's a physics problem. Fluorocarbon is stiffer than monofilament or braid, and that stiffness that gives it abrasion resistance also makes it fight a spinning reel's design. If you want the invisibility and abrasion benefits of fluorocarbon on a spinning setup, use it as a leader off a braid mainline. 12 to 20. 4 inches of fluorocarbon tied to your braid gets you most of the practical benefit without the headaches. Heavy fluorocarbon as a full spool belongs on a bait caster, where the level wind design handles stiffer lines much better. Spending $20+ on a full spool of heavy fluoro for a spinning reel is one of the most common and most avoidable upgrade mistakes out there. Number 4 is the 8-strand braided line upgrade. 4-strand braid has been a standard for a long time, and it works extremely well. Then 8-strand came along, promising a smoother texture, rounder profile, and quieter performance through the guides. It costs more, and it sounds like a clear step forward. In some applications, it is marginally smoother. But here's what gets overlooked. 8-strand braid is generally softer and tends to have slightly less abrasion resistance per diameter than 4-strand because the individual fibers are thinner. In heavy cover, rocks, docks, laydowns, 4-strand often holds up better under repeated contact. And the smoothness difference that sounds significant in a product description is something most anglers cannot meaningfully detect once they're actually fishing and focused on what's happening below the surface. For most freshwater fishing situations, a quality 4-strand in a proven brand does everything you need. 8-strand may have a genuine edge in very specific presentations, like skipping lightweight lures, where that softer lay helps. But as a general upgrade for the average angler, it's one of the easier expenses you can skip without consequence. Live sonar, and forward-facing units in particular, are genuinely effective tools in the right hands. Tournament anglers and dedicated fishermen who invest real hours learning to read the screen, understand the water column, and adjust their presentation based on what they see can use these systems to find fish they'd absolutely miss otherwise. But anglers who buy a premium unit, mount it, and expect it to do the work for them often end up frustrated or confused. These systems have significant learning curves. Transducer placement, sensitivity settings, frequency selection, and interpreting what's actually showing on screen all take time to develop into usable knowledge. A well-placed mid-range unit that shows you depth, bottom composition, and basic structure covers most of what the average weekend angler actually needs from a fish finder. The $500 unit and the $1,500 unit may show you the same school of fish. What differs is the detail, the real-time view, and the flexibility at advanced settings. If you're not going to spend the time learning the difference, a significant portion of that upgrade cost sits unused. Number 6 is reflexively swapping out factory hooks on every lure you own. Replacing factory trebles with premium aftermarket hooks can absolutely make sense on budget lures that come with soft, dull wire that bends on a decent fish. That is a real and worthwhile upgrade on the right bait. But the habit gets applied indiscriminately, including on lures that already come with adequate or genuinely good factory hardware. Here's the more practical approach. Check the hook point before you fish it. Drag the point lightly across your thumbnail. If it catches and grabs, it's sharp enough to fish. If it slides, sharpen it or replace it. Some factory hooks on inexpensive lures are genuinely worth replacing immediately. Some mid-range and premium lures already come with hardware that performs fine as is. Spending more on aftermarket hooks than the lure itself cost without checking what's already there is spending money on a problem you may not actually have. The seventh upgrade that sounds better than it delivers for most anglers involves premium, proprietary formula-scented soft plastics at the top of the price range. Scent in fishing is a real consideration. Fish do use their olfactory senses, and there's reasonable evidence that scent can influence how long a fish holds a bait before releasing it. That part is legitimate, but the specific high-end formulation at double or triple the price of a comparable soft plastic, the performance difference is rarely as large as the marketing suggests. Standard salt-impregnated plastics at mid-range prices give you most of the scent benefit. A base that commits to a bite and then releases the bait quickly is often doing so because of the hook set timing or the presentation, not because the bait lacked a premium attractant compound. The expensive scented plastic doesn't guarantee a longer hold or better hookup rate when other elements of the technique are off. Choose the right size, profile, and color for your conditions, and add an external scent product if you want to introduce that variable. You don't need the most expensive bag on the peg to accomplish what scent actually does on a fishing presentation. Number 8 is the ultra-lightweight reel upgrade when you're already using a reasonably balanced setup. Rod and reel balance matters. A tip-heavy outfit is genuinely tiring over a full day of casting, and getting that balance right makes a real difference in comfort. But the marketing around extreme lightweight reels sometimes pushes anglers to replace functional equipment with something lighter in ways that produce no meaningful on-the-water change. Removing a few grams from a reel that's already reasonably matched to the rod is not something most anglers notice after the first cast. The benefit of extreme lightweight construction is most relevant to tournament anglers and guides who make several hundred casts daily under physically demanding conditions. For the angler fishing a few weekends a month, the difference between a reel weighing 7 ounces and one weighing 5.5 ounces is unlikely to change the fishing experience in any meaningful way. What does matter, and is worth paying for, is drag smoothness, gear quality, and how well the reel is sealed for the conditions you fish in. Shaving a couple grams, for most people fishing at a recreational level, is not where the money is best spent. The 9th upgrade, and this one I want to address directly, is the massive premium tackle organization and storage system. Multi-tray boxes, waterproof wallets, color-coded compartments, grid organizers, labeled divider systems. Tackle storage has become its own serious category of fishing spending. And being organized does help. Not having to dig through a jumbled box to find the right hook size saves actual time and frustration on the water. But serious money spent on premium tackle organization systems doesn't catch a single extra fish on its own. The angler who knows their water and has a reasonably organized box of proven baits is going to outfish the angler with a perfectly labeled, color-sorted premium system who doesn't yet understand what the fish are doing in the conditions they're fishing. Tackle organization is largely a comfort purchase rather than a performance purchase. A few decent utility boxes from a hardware store holds the same hooks, weights, and swivels as an expensive tackle wallet. Get organized. But if your budget is limited, put that money into better line, sharper hooks, and more time on the water before you invest heavily in the container holding it all. Be honest with yourself. How many lures are sitting in your tackle storage right now that you haven't tied on in 2 years? Organization doesn't fix accumulation, and it doesn't catch fish by itself. Here's what all 9 of these have in common. None of them are fraudulent products. They all exist because there is a legitimate fishing application where each one makes sense. High-speed reels work for specific techniques. premium graphite rods have a real place in finesse fishing. Live sonar changes everything for anglers willing to master it. 8-strand braid does feel different in certain casting situations. The problem is never the product existing. The problem is the upgrade being applied without matching it to the angler, the technique, the target species, or the environment. Good fishing gear is the gear that fits the way you actually fish, not the way you imagine yourself fishing in the best case scenario on the best possible day. The water doesn't care what you paid for your setup. It only responds to what you do with it. Tell me in the comments which one of these you've fallen for, because I guarantee at least one of them is sitting in somebody's garage or tackle box right now, without quite living up to what was promised on the label. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's about to spend money on an upgrade that sounds a lot better than it's going to perform. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.